I think that these Republican senators and everybody who is familiar with the name Kash Patel also know the danger that he poses. And that is because it is a well-known thing in these inner circles by anyone who worked with Kash. And I worked with Kash in the White House. I was Vice President Mike Pence's counterterrorism advisor. So I had to coordinate with Kash a lot. Kash Patel is a delusional liar. Let me just be very clear about that. And he would lie about intelligence. He would lie about making things up on operations. I think Mark Esper has talked about that as well, where he put the lives of Navy SEALs at risk in an operation when it came to Nigeria. These are things that actually were happening in real time when he was in the role of CT coordinator in the White House. And I know this because at some point I realized that I needed to double check Kash's work to make sure that I wasn't misinforming Mike Pence by relying on his word. So I had to go around him.
Former VP Mike Pence's counterterrorism advisor, Olivia Troye, has become the new MAGA administration's latest addition to their enemies list by relaying her direct interactions with Kash Patel, highlighting his tendency to make things up with no regard for who it affected.
And this is a guy who openly has contempt for people in national security, for people especially at DOJ and the FBI. He made open comments like this. And so I think, there is a little bit of fear here from people where they know that someone like Kash Patel is fully capable of just doing partisan investigations, whatever it takes. It will be insane if he becomes the director of the FBI. And I fear for the law enforcement personnel there who are going to have to navigate this. And quite honestly, when I look at Kash Patel in combination with what is Pam Bondi going to do if she gets in as AG, is that top cover for him? I mean, these are all the things that concern me when I see all of these names being proposed for all of these different positions, because this is a very real risk and to the detriment of Americans, to be clear.
Trump's nominees for many of the positions that he's named have been forced to focus on convincing senators and the public that their self-serving and dangerously harmful past won't affect how they do their jobs. But Kash Patel has promised to carry out so many anti-American and authoritarian actions. If he was called on to lead the FBI, he probably doesn't feel any need to clean it up. He's just ready to silence the people that are calling him out. So he hurried up and sent a letter demanding Troye retract the statements about him being a delusional liar. Litigation will be filed against you if you fail to publicly retract defamatory statements you made about Mr. Patel on MSNBC. Be further advised that you should identify and preserve all hard copy and electronically stored documents, information, and data that relate in any way to Mr. Patel and your statement about him on MSNBC. These comments include that Mr. Patel would lie about intelligence and would lie about making things up on operations to the point where Mr. Patel put the lives of Navy SEALs at risk when it came to Nigeria, and that Mr. Patel was even misinforming Vice President Mike Pence. And here's the weird part. Mr. Patel demands that you retract your lies in a public statement on your X account within 5 business days of receipt of this letter. Unless this step is taken, Mr. Patel will take swift legal action to uphold his rights and reputation. Okay, so a couple of things. What's the purpose of demanding she submit a groveling retraction only on X? Is it some kind of legitimization aspect of this new administration's goal of making Elon Musk's social media app the gathering place for online MAGA punishment or something? I guess it really doesn't matter because she actually responded on CNN.
He is threatening you for criticizing him.
Yeah, I think it's a very clear sign of what's to come should he become the director of the FBI and how he's going to conduct himself. I mean, we should take him at his word. These are things that he has threatened in the past. And I think by doing what he did, by sending that letter to me, it was an attempt to bully me, silence me, intimidate me. But it's also a signal to others, right, as he goes into the confirmation process of trying to silence others in terms of telling the truth about his background. I mean, look, I am a person who believes that he is unfit for the role of FBI director, and I have concerns about how he will behave in the role in leading the nation's premier law enforcement agency.
And so you stand by your criticism of Kash Patel?
I absolutely do.
Even if they have this letter saying you've got to retract all this, you're not going to do that?
Yeah, I'm not going to retract from telling the truth. That is where I am, and this is something that I lived when I was working with him, and it is absolutely true. Like, there were people on his staff that used to come to my office and seek counsel from me and advice about what it was like to work for him, who know exactly what I'm talking about. Others have been very public about the things that I mentioned. I am not the only senior national security official who has, come out and said they have concerns about Kash Patel and his fitness for this role.
Troye's post showing the demand for retraction also said that others had expressed concerns about Patel. I mean, it checks out with her first retelling of events regarding Mark Esper's concerns about Patel risking the lives of those Navy SEALs.
This is, I think, October 2020, when we were trying to rescue an American in West Africa who had been captured by, we believe, terrorists and whose life was in danger. So we sent our special operators abroad to rescue that person. They were in the air. We had launched them. I had launched them on the premise that we had airspace clearance into that country to conduct the operation. It was information given by allegedly Kash Patel to Tony Tata, who was worked for me in OSD policy. And we found out hours later, as we were about to cross into that territory, that it was not true, that the State Department had not got that clearance. And so for a moment in time there, at least an hour, it jeopardized the mission. And if we weren't able to pull it off, could have jeopardized the welfare of that American on the ground.
With notable people like Mark Esper openly discussing Kash Patel's irresponsible tendencies that put people's lives at risk, the reason Olivia might be the only one targeted with legal threats is because not only is she standing by her story, but she's willing to testify in his confirmation hearing.
And so you would testify at a confirmation hearing if called to testify for Kash Patel. And you think that, is it possible that you were just mentioning other officials who worked around him during the Trump administration, is it possible we might see other former colleagues be called to testify who would have things to say about things that he did right, things that they think he did wrong?
Yes, and the reason that I think this is so important is because we are people that worked in nonpartisan roles. That's how the national security community works, right? And that is why we're concerned, because when it comes to someone that's going to lead the FBI, the last thing we need is a loyalist partisan hack leading that agency and doing things that are going to be just for the president's or his personal vendetta. And that is why this matters so much. And I'm happy to go before Congress and testify and tell them what I know. I'm sure others would as well.
We have to remind ourselves the large number of former Trump administration officials like Olivia Troye that have come forward with warnings and reputable accounts of dangerous actions and attempts to break the law without blinking. The amount of madness that MAGA produces makes some people accept the ridiculous argument that all these folks just became disgruntled employees all at the same time, all the way up to Mike Pence. It's a pretty blatant refusal to consider the likelihood that the disgruntled one is probably Trump, especially since Troy has been exposing him for a few years now.
I found classified information in the ladies' room of the White House one time in the Eisenhower Executive Office building, and I immediately walked it right up to security and said, I just found this in the bathroom. I covered it up. I put it in a folder. It wasn't marked properly. The folder wasn't, because I was not expecting to walk in the ladies' room and find a document like that. But I marched right up. I gave him my name. I gave him the information. I said, I don't know. I can't tell you. I can't track how it got there. This is all very gravely concerning. And I'll tell you this, many of us in the national security community and those of us who worked in the Trump administration, we worried about this. Right. We worried about the fact that there was clearly not a great understanding by the president of how to handle this information when Trump was in office. And we worried about the fact that he would just disclose things in conversations, right? And you didn't know what he was going to say.